My name is Jacob Davis with Hot Rod Magazine, and I'm about to do something very illegal.
What are you doing?
But it's legitimately a little insane. It is 44 gallons of gas in the car with me, and there's a nitrous bottle right here.
And then you can hardline all of that into the
Oh no, it's gonna be rubber.
Of course not. Sorry.
Just remember, you approved of
I
this.
So, the Cannonball Run. It is basically a cross-country race that runs from the Red Ball Garage in New York City, in the heart of Manhattan, all the way to the Portofino Hotel and Marina here in Redondo Beach. It's one of the last true outlaw races there is in America. And it was originally founded as kind of like a middle finger to OPEC, basically, about these 55-mile-an-hour speed limits that were, put in place to save gas. Well, car enthusiasts have never really been about saving gas. Brock Yates, who's a legendary automotive journalist, he started it in 1971, ran it by himself the first year in a van, and then over the next 8 years, they ran it 4 more times. It became this legendary thing that eventually turned into a movie and then has been this thing that's a bucket list item for die-hard car guys.
How long is it going to take you?
My goal is to do it in 34 hours flat.
Whoa, okay, so we got a lot of work to do.
I love how you sound like it's so simple to go 2,800 miles in a 47-year-old station wagon with an inline 6 to the 3-speed automatic.
So my car, the Green Hornet, which we have here behind me, is a pretty good road trip car as it is, but to be able to make it survive a Cannonball Run and actually run a decent time, there was a few things I wanted to do to modify it. I titled the list Cross Country in the Green Hornet, and the very first thing on the list is perhaps the most important: auxiliary fuel tanks. So I'm going to be adding 2 22-gallon fuel cells into the rear of the car. But in addition, I have spare parts that I'm gonna have with me in the car. Some logistical things in here like toll passes, GPS, and of course, you have to have a killer playlist, and no dubstep is allowed. Currently, the classic car record was set by Ed Bolian and a group of individuals in 2016 in a 74 Dodge Monaco done up like the Bluesmobile, and they did it in 34 hours and 17 minutes. My goal is to do it in less than that. So their average speed was about 82.67 miles an hour across the country. I'm gonna try to sit at 90. You didn't hear that if you're a police officer. So this is gonna give me 44 gallons of extra capacity in the back of the car. They're gonna be mounted in the back of the car using the metal straps, and then there's going to be a whole bunch of fittings that I have laid out in front of me to make this all work. So rather than making these the actual fuel system of the car, these are simply going to serve as auxiliary tanks, and this pump is going to be the transfer pump and basically pull gas from one tank, and it's going to dump into the factory filler neck. So this might not seem safe. It might seem like a really bad idea, and in truth, it probably is. But I'm gonna do it anyway. This will be fun. It's not gonna leave me a lot of room for other stuff. So I'm going to actually take the door off of this false floor panel in here and build a frame underneath these things. It's very important because if you do not clean the surface you're going to be welding, you're going to get terrible welds. All right, so I just got this quick frame put together. It's 5 pieces, 36 inches wide by 7 inches deep, and all I got to do is weld it together. It should go in the car, then I got to build a couple down supports from it to the floor, and it should hold our fuel cells in there really nicely.
these metal straps go over the tank, and they're supposed to have a loose fit because these tanks actually swell and, you know, change their size on the outside due to heat and the gasoline that's in them. So we want these to stay a little loose. I think the two middle ones are going to share a bolt hole, and then the outsides will obviously have their own bolt holes. The pickups are here underneath these red plastic ports. Run to a fuel pump. It's going to be mounted down below the fuel cells, because when you have a fuel pump, you don't want it to have to be pulling fuel out of the tank. It wants to push fuel forward. So if you put it below the tank line, it's actually siphoning before it actually gets to the pump. So the way these are fitting against each other, I'm overlaying the two straps and sharing this hole for the middle. I'm having to grind down the end of this. So. All right, so got everything mocked up, figured out where I need to drill holes. So I got to pull everything out, drill those holes, then bolt these in there and figure out where all the lines are going to run. So one of the bolt holes landed on the frame that I built, and to keep from crushing this thin wall tubing, I'm actually going to weld in a sleeve into it that when I bolt through will keep it from crushing this tubing. A quick, easy way to keep from crushing a pipe.
I see light, which means I went all the way through and hopefully didn't hit anything important. What we have here on top of the tank, this is your vent. So there's actually a rollover valve inside this. If anything were to go catastrophically wrong, fuel won't dump out of your tank. And this is the pickup. So what I have here is a dash 8 AN female to 3/8 MPT male. And that's what's gonna go on the back here and on every single other one of these AN outlets on this tank. From there, you know, any smart person would go to hardline. I'm not a smart person. So I put a 3/8 barb fitting up here, and then that is going to immediately turn to another 3/8 barb fitting that has a ball valve in it. And there's actually two of these. So these two, one for each tank, are going to allow me to select between tanks to fill the factory tank. And then those are going to tee together right here. And then one single line is going to run down underneath to a fuel pump. Another 3/8 line is going to come out of that. This is a steel pipe with a 1/4 inch MPT coupler to a 1/4 inch MPT with a 3/8 barb. So that's going to go there and allow me to use all this to fill the factory tank. And if I close one of these valves and open the other, it'll pull from this tank. If I close this valve and open this one, it'll pull from this tank. I think it's safe to say that's not coming out. Alright. So this will just be it out in here once I put the fuel line in. The next thing to address is this horrible side pipe. And it sounds horrible. I mean, this thing drones like you wouldn't believe. It sounds like there's a small aircraft outside your window while you're driving down the highway. And then we put the flamethrower in it, which is also something I don't want with 44 gallons of gasoline in the back. So I'm actually gonna piggyback off of some of the flamethrower install and use the switch to control the fuel pump, cut this thing off, and put a much quieter exhaust pipe on it. Normally use these for intakes, but we're gonna use it to clamp this exhaust together. And that way I won't have to throw a big, nasty MIG weld all the way around this. And I think it looks way better than it used to. The important part is it quieter? All right, so I just got the Hornet loaded down with everything that I'm gonna need on this trip. I'm gonna wait till I get outside LA to fill up the 2 fuel cells and put that to the test. But I have about 2,400 miles ahead of me to get to Georgia. Gonna stop and see some awesome stuff and some great people along the way. I left Los Angeles this morning in the Green Hornet and waited until I got to Arizona to test out these fuel cells. So we're gonna see how this goes. And there's 22 gallons exactly, $76.10 to fill up this one container. All right, just ran the credit card again. Here comes round 2. $52 gallons, $180. That's not that bad. Alrighty guys, I'm transferring fuel for the first time. Look at that. That's running from the fuel cell to a pump into the factory filler neck. Some mad scientist stuff. About halfway on my road trip across the country, I had to stop in Dallas at the one and only Flying Sparks Garage with Emily Reeves of the new Motor Trend On Demand show, Live, Love, Wrench. So, drove the Hornet here about 1,600 miles in. It's doing all right.
She's so awesome. So you know a lot more about this than I do.
You have to drive one single car from New York to LA as fast as possible. And yes, you're on public roads, but it's essentially just a rally.
And when you're driving, are you driving with other cars that are on this race or rally, or are you kind of focusing on your time?
Yeah, so there's a few groups that actually run the Cannonball still. People do it on their own from time to time, but I'm actually doing it with a group called the C2C Express. And the goal isn't wheel-to-wheel racing. It's all about you versus a clock. And when you're on the road, you all leave at different times from New York. So you space out everybody leaving. So it's not this running start at the beginning.
It's not like you're at the stoplight and you're like, I'm going to beat you.
Yeah, you hear about all these people street racing, but they're only doing a quarter mile. Like, this is a real race across the entire nation. And
it's crazy.
It's, you know, it's mildly illegal because you are speeding on public roads. But the logic of the people that do it is that they're so focused on what they're doing that they're paying way more attention than the person that's just driving to work, texting, putting on their makeup.
Right.
And in the whole history of the Cannonball, there's only ever been one real accident, and it was a single car accident with one of the competitors that just went off the road and rolled their car into a ditch. So nobody's ever been hurt doing this. They made a movie about it back in the early 80s called Cannonball Run with Burt Reynolds was actually the main actor in it.
Crazy.
And it actually basically tells the story of the final Cannonball Run in 1979.
So awesome.
We're going to do a few things to the car, but I'm going to do an electric fan, get rid of the mechanical fan, because with all the weight, this thing's really hard to roll down the highway. You got to give it a lot of gas. And we saw in an episode of Engine Masters that you'll pick up about 25 horsepower
Yeah.
getting rid of a
Electric fans are
mechanical fan.
awesome.
So I need that extra little bit of oomph.
Proud of you, dude.
Should be good.
That runs the electric fan. This runs my transfer pump for the fuel system in the rear.
So after we made the changes, it was time to hit the road. And Burt Reynolds, I actually found out he passed away when I was in Texarkana. So I had to stop and buy some cores. You know, if you've seen Smokey and the Bandit, you know that they had to get the beer from Texarkana to Atlanta. And to be in Texarkana when I found out Burt Reynolds died, just, I don't know, it blew my mind and it made it feel like something special. So I had to buy that cores, drive it to Atlanta. I cracked one for myself when I got to Atlanta and left one for Burt. So the whole trip kind of turned into this Burt Reynolds tribute for me, which was really neat.
So a few things have changed inside the car since we had it in LA. I actually added a way to add oil to the engine while driving. So this is a jug with a hose that runs to a 12-volt pump through the firewall into the valve cover. I have some GPS. There's going to be 2 phones. We have binoculars to look for cops. There's a radar detector up here, and I even have a CB that I still have to hook up.
We left the last day of drag week. My buddies Lee and Justin flew in from California into Atlanta, and then they met me at Atlanta Dragway.
I should have my head checked because we're racing the Cannonball Run in a Hornet.
He had this crazy idea and somehow I got looped in, and I don't know.
I have no idea why we're doing this, except for the fact that apparently we all have something wrong with us, and we don't exactly know what it is.
The goal is to try and make it across the country in roughly, hopefully, under 34 hours.
There's a lot of bets on the table right now as to what fails first. My guess is everything.
Hopefully we don't get arrested.
Thank you, AMC.
That's a bad idea.
And so we hit the road. Everything's going smoothly. I let Lee have a turn in the driver's seat, let him get used to the car. And then Justin takes over right about the time we're going into Virginia. And
Justin just got behind the wheel, no joke, like 5 minutes ago. First time ever driving the car. And I wasn't paying enough attention guiding him through how the car works, and the speedometer reads a little slow. So if you look behind us right now, that's a cop car. So yeah, hopefully he's nice about the ticket. He seemed all right. We'll see how he treats us. He hasn't said anything about all the stuff in the car. We'll see what happens.
it's a reckless driving ticket.
We're in West Virginia now because we didn't want to talk about it for an entire state.
We're free.
Yeah, we're free now. He can never come back to Virginia because if he does, he's going to jail. Not really, but he might have to hire a lawyer. So he got a ticket. Yeah. He wasn't really paying attention because he never driven the car, and I wasn't paying attention, and I should have. And he was doing 88 to 65.
He's trying to go back in time.
We have officially ended up in New York City.
We only stopped for gas when we got into New York, which was about 900 miles on one tank. So we roll in, check into the hotel, and get a few hours sleep before waking up in the morning to actually do the Cannonball Run. So morning one, we got to the Red Ball and ended up leaving the Red Ball, got the actual timestamp at 2:56 p.m. So right on schedule for what I wanted. And come charging out of the Red Ball and hit the first red light.
About to hopefully hit some open highway and get some average speed up on this thing, because right now our moving average is 14 miles an hour.
And then that, happens for the next few miles because you're in the middle of Manhattan and nobody gets out of there quickly. Apparently a good time to get out of Manhattan is about 11 minutes. It took us 27 minutes to get to the other side of the tunnel outside of Manhattan. So definitely put us at a little bit of a disadvantage leaving New York.
All right, so we are, let's see how far in there. All right, so we are 336 miles into our first Cannonball Run. Got Justin over here, man, of binoculars, looking out for rabbits and stuff. Deer. And deer. Not anything else. But things are going all right. Car's doing good. No real issues out of it. Getting a little warm up at higher speeds, but nothing that I'm too worried about. So we're just gonna keep on rolling. We're just gonna keep rolling on. Sun's setting, making it really hard to see. So we're about to drive into the night.
there is a possibility that if you get a really, really serious cop, that they might take you to jail or possibly impound your car. But we run this race, the C2C Express, as a charity. All the proceeds go to the Brock Yates Memorial Fund for ALS, as well as the Driven to Honor Cannonball Memorial Run charity, which is a charity for fallen officers. And the police officers are generally more than cool.
Alright, so morning, day 2 on the road. We got Lee back here on the binoculars spotting for bears, you remember? Bears, that's right. We don't want to hit a bear, that would destroy the car. Wildlife. So we're making good progress. We're about halfway across the country right now. No issues out of the car, no issues out of those pesky bears. We're right on track to do exactly what I wanted to do. So we'll see how it goes. Hold on.
My alleged top speed may have been, or may not have been, 119 miles an hour in this car, which is fairly impressive considering it's still the original drivetrain inline 6 3-speed automatic. By the time we got to Flagstaff, which is about 500 miles outside of LA, it was time for our last fill-up.
So, we were kind of on record to do something here. Maybe set a record for the classic car category. Pull into the final gas station stop, and I hear the fan doing something weird.
My car was basically going into nuclear meltdown mode. So we finally got to this gas station here. And as you can see, the radiator has seen better days. The fan actually ended up hitting the radiator somehow. And then a lot of bad things happened.
Yes.
How are you feeling?
I'm really tired.
But it got into the radiator, poked a hole in it, and it was leaking coolant.
This is not exactly how I anticipated this going. We were trying to set a record.
We were close.
We were so close. And then this happened.
Too,
Engine's still running good. It's just covered in a lot of random chemicals we poured into the radiator.
yeah.
So we put some radiator stop leak, some water wetter, and a whole bunch of cold distilled water in it. And we're back on the road, and we're gonna see how she does. Let's go into the desert in a car that's broken. Sounds like a good plan, right, guys? At this point, it doesn't matter. Let's blow the engine up. Just do it in LA.
And for probably about an hour and a half, we were sitting at, what may have been triple digits. So we're buzzing along, and all of a sudden, steam out the hood. And I'm like, oh man, that can't be good. Took the electric fan off. I had the mechanical fan in the back, so we put that back on. We ran somewhere around 90 the entire rest of the trip. But that, couple hours span of when everything happened with the radiator and us having to drive a little slower completely killed our average. Like, any chance for a record was gone.
I don't think I've been more disappointed about something competition related in a very long time. That's saying something. But yeah, I mean, we were close. Jacob was killing it. The car was good. I looked through binoculars for 10 hours in a sitting. 35 hours. I was counting on this one. And
2,300 miles and
2,300 miles.
we're still making it coast to coast.
Yeah, what's really crazy is I left Los Angeles, drove all the way to Georgia, drove to New York, drove all the way across the country, and the electric fan quit 500 miles from the finish line. A brand new electric fan. So that's the most important thing. Because if it was an electric fan that was an old, junky mess, that'd be one thing. This is a brand new electric fan. That's where I went wrong. I got something brand new on the car. Yeah. Anyway, I need to stop talking because now this has just turned into a rambling rant, and I'm annoyed. So I'm just gonna drive my car at a leisurely pace and enjoy the beautiful scenery that the American Southwest has to offer. We're almost there. We have 3 hours and 8 minutes left according to the GPS. See you in LA. all the way here, got here at, what, 36 hours and 53 minutes, all the way from the Red Ball Garage in New York City to the Portofino Hotel and Marina here in Redondo Beach, California.
Like, I started off the trip pretty, you know, safe. Like, I was driving relatively slow, and then I looked at the average after like 15 minutes, and I was like, no.
The
Yeah,
time frame was a trip.
It hasn't been that long since we were in New York.
Yeah, so that's a highlight right there for us.
If I never see another pair of binoculars in my life, it'll be too soon.
I don't know what day it is.
I don't know what planet I'm on.
I can't wait to sleep. So this is what ruined our trip. This is the electric motor and fan assembly, and you can't see it because it's missing, but there's a little spring clip that slides over this shaft that keeps the fan from coming off the output shaft of the motor, and that clip, which is literally the size of my fingernail, came off and allowed the fan to separate and go into the radiator. And literally the smallest part possible ruined the plan that I had to be here in under 34 hours.
But, you know, we ended up getting to LA 36 hours and 53 minutes. You know, it was my first time out. I learned a lot about that event, and it's something that I've always wanted to check off my bucket list. So I got to do that, and it's still, this car right here is the fastest AMC to ever take part in the Cannonball Run. And it was a lot of fun, you know, made some lasting relationships that I'm sure I'm gonna have for a long time. And as always, please remember to like, comment, and share this video with your friends. And who knows, maybe next year you'll see the Hornet fly by you if I cannonball yet again.